A memorable Seinfeld storyline gets a modern update in Curb Your Enthusiasm Season 12, Episode 3 as Larry David finds himself at odds with recent Oscar winner Troy Kotsur. With Larry David serving as Seinfeld's co-creator and the showrunner for its first 7 seasons, it's not surprising that some of the hit sitcom storylines and problems have found their way into David's HBO comedy Curb Your Enthusiasm. Of course, while George Costanza was often a stand-in for David himself in many of Seinfeld's narratives, Curb Your Enthusiasm has a fictionalized Larry making trouble with various celebrities and guest stars. After setting up the likelihood of Curb's ending to repeat Seinfeld's divisive finale in the previous installment, Season 12, Episode 3 is reminiscent of a different episode from the sitcom's Larry David era. Episode 3 follows a few storylines that yield various outcomes for Curb's main characters. As Susie gets a new dog from Ted and Cheryl, Leon replaces Freddie in an arrangement with his neighbors, Larry tries to avoid paying for a tree service, and Larry begins a rivalry with Coda's Troy Kotsur at the golf course. The latter story, in particular, bears similarities to a 1993 Seinfeld outing. Troy Kotsur's role in Curb Your Enthusiasm Season 12, Episode 3 calls back to Seinfeld's The Lip Reader episode. Marlee Matlin as Laura in Seinfeld Season 5 episode. Troy Kotsur, who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in 2022 for his role in Coda, makes a memorable guest appearance in Curb Your Enthusiasm Season 12, Episode 3 as himself. In the episode, Kotsur receives golf lessons at the club where Larry is a member, and an unashamed Larry begins stealing tips from Kotsur's instructor to better his own game. Larry continues to run into Kotsur throughout the episode, with his worst infraction coming when he tees off and hits the deaf actor, who is further down the fairway, in the back after failing to yell "for" and signal to his interpreter. Of course, this isn't the first time that a Larry David show has recruited an Oscar-winning deaf actor for an episode in which the main characters get in trouble for, intentionally or not, taking advantage of the deaf characters. Seinfeld's Season 5 episode, The Lip Reader, famously starred deaf actress Marlee Matlin as Laura, a deaf tennis lineswoman who agreed to help George read the lips of his ex-girlfriend at a party. While Larry using Troy Kotsur's golf lessons for his own game got him in trouble due to his lack of awareness, George got in trouble when Kramer misinterpreted Laura's signs. In both shows, the main characters find themselves making matters worse without a proper knowledge of sign language. However, while George was the Larry David-esque stand-in back in 1993, David himself is the one whose miscommunication causes issues in Curb Your Enthusiasm's 2024 episode. Furthermore, Larry and George creating problems after miscommunications with deaf characters isn't the only connection between the two episodes, as some casting links and plot details make the Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm storylines more similar. Troy Kotsur's Curb Your Enthusiasm episode shares more connections to Seinfeld's The Lip Reader. Perhaps the biggest piece of overlap between the two episodes is the main guest star, as both storylines with the deaf characters star Oscar-winning Coda actors. Marlee Matlin, who won the Oscar for Best Actress for Children of a Lesser God just 6 years before her Seinfeld appearance, would go on to star in Coda's cast as Jackie Rossi, the main character Ruby's mother. Matlin also played the on-screen wife of Troy Kotsur, who starred in Coda as Ruby's father, Frank Rossi. Consequently, it just so happens that two of Coda's stars have found themselves at the center of bizarre storylines with Larry David's characters. The storylines with Coda's actors also both happen to kick off at sporting events. Jerry and George meet Matlin's character, Laura, at a tennis match in Seinfeld, with her job as a lineswoman coming back into the plot as Kramer tries to be a ball boy. In Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry begins his rivalry with Kotsur at the golf course as they separately play rounds at the club, though their interactions conclude on the street when Larry accidentally hits Kotsur with a bagel. Though Matlin wasn't accidentally hit by one of Seinfeld's characters, her episode did end with Kramer unintentionally injuring tennis star Monica Seles. Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld's episodes never make deaf people the punchline. Larry waving in Curb Your Enthusiasm. One of the best aspects shared by Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm is the notion that the main characters will almost always end up being the bad guys in social situations. While any guest star needs to be able to poke fun at themselves for these storylines, it'll ultimately be George, Jerry, Elaine, and Kramer in Seinfeld or Larry in Curb Your Enthusiasm who ends up in the wrong. In both The Lip Reader and Vertical Drop, Horizontal Tug, the deaf characters or their disability are never at the center of the punchline, it's always the main characters, instead. Of course, that doesn't mean the guest stars don't get to have fun by throwing some humor back at Larry, Jerry, or George. Rather than have Jerry and George insensitively trick Laura into using her lip-reading skill for their own benefit, Laura eagerly agrees to it before they can even ask the question, on account of Jerry and George's poor attempts to hide their conversation. Seinfeld's episode ensured that Laura took agency in this memorable storyline, though that didn't stop problems from arising on account of Kramer's poor sign language interpretations.